Okay guys, if you're watching this, then you probably know me as George Capernaros. I'm the owner of YOCTO, and this YouTube channel that you landed on is one of the best resources there are in the entire world, I promise you, when it comes to learning e-commerce and lifecycle marketing. Now, this is one of the very first videos we publish, so please do subscribe and do share this with your friends, because it's really going to motivate us to keep publishing high quality videos like this. Now, if you don't know YOCTO, we are one of the world's best lifecycle marketing agencies. We specifically focus our work on health, wellness, beauty, and CPG brands. We've worked with the likes of Health, Better Me, Kilo Health, Everyden, Freya Organics, Heights, some of the best brands in the world, literally. And we have tons of case studies that you can easily find on our website, so I'm not gonna stay too much on this. But basically we know what works, we've seen it work over and over and over again, and today what we're gonna show you, and we're gonna show it in a better way than anybody else, I promise you, is how to set up retargeting automations that cover the entire life cycle. And spoiler alert, most people don't do this well, especially if they complicate things and they start adding more automations on top of the native ones that exist within Klaviyo and their e-commerce integration. I'm talking about those that use tools like Elevar, Little Data, Blackrow, Aimerce, Little Data, all of those tools that ultimately are supposed to help you, but in practice mess your account up because you're not setting them up well. We're gonna cover how to do retention, how to do Opensend, meaning third-party publisher networks, so that by the time you finish watching this video, you have everything set up in the best possible way, from your site abandonment to your price abandonment to your cart abandonment to your checkout abandonment, and the equivalent versions of your server-side technology, be that Elevar, Blackrow, whatever it is, and on top of it, your third-party publisher network, whether that's retention or Opensend. And on top of this, we're also going to show you how to use little-known features within Klaviyo that will allow you to capture even more users that you might be currently capturing. And the thing is, for whatever reason, almost no brand that we see is actually leveraging those hidden features. And that's a conversation for another story in terms of why Klaviyo hides them, but they can truly be super impactful. They can allow you to capture more users, they can allow you to capture more metrics, and ultimately send way more emails. So, make a long story short, you landed on the right video, you're gonna learn everything, it's gonna be a long watch, but by the time you finish watching, you will be ready to apply a full conversion system covering the entire life cycle for your brand, from a very simple to a very complicated and advanced way. You are gonna learn the entire thing, so keep watching. Okay, let's start with the very basics. What is retargeting and why does it matter? So out of all of the people you bring to the website, there's a portion that will view your product pages, add something to their cart, start the checkout process, and those people have two things in common. Number one, you've paid money to bring them to the website, and number two, they raised their hand and said, hey, I'm interested. They show a level of purchasing intent, right? When they view your product pages, when they're adding stuff to their cart, let alone when they begin the checkout process. Retargeting is you bringing them back to the website in a more cost-effective way than the paid media advertising that you did to initially capture them. And you can do this through email, you can do this through SMS, you can even do this through direct mail, which is nothing more than sending them like physical mail to their address. And the way this works, like in a very real and practical sense, is that you add a little bit of code to your website that basically allows the technology that you use to send those messages to track user behavior. You might be using Klaviyo. Most people use Klaviyo, so this video will show you how to do everything that we're talking about in Klaviyo. But basically, once you add Klaviyo's little JavaScript to the website, the user is then tracked by Klaviyo, and what they do on the website is tied back to their profile. Now, there's many different scenarios of what Klaviyo might be tracking. They might enter your site and they might leave without clicking anything else. In that case, they should be targeted with what we call the site abandonment retargeting flow, which is essentially a retargeting workstream that targets those that show a very mild level of intent. There's the equivalent browse abandonment step, which is just the next step, which is that they enter the website and view the product. So now they do so a little bit more interest, right? But they never added something to the cart. They never started the checkout. Those two other scenarios, adding something to cart or starting the checkout, deserve their own abandonment workflow. And I'm going to show you how to create all of those in the correct way in a moment. But fundamentally, what you need to understand is that the purchase path within your website is ultimately shaped like a funnel. You will have people visiting the website, like fewer people viewing a product page, fewer people adding something to the cart, fewer people starting the checkout, and a smaller number that ultimately does complete the purchase. And unless you're targeting all of those stages, you are ultimately missing out on conversions. And let's now head over to Klaviyo. I'm going to show you how to set it up. It's very clean. I'm going to show you the exact filters that you need to set up. Okay, so we have those 4 separate automations: checkout abandonment, cart abandonment, browse abandonment, and site abandonment. And as I said, all of those correspond to different scenarios of purchase intent. The way to start is from the very bottom, the highest purchase intent. So you want to start with your checkout abandonment, and then you're going to add your cart abandonment, and then your browse abandonment, and then ultimately your site abandonment. And then when you open that, it actually works like this. You want to have a trigger setting, and for checkout abandonment, you want to select checkout started. Now the next step here is to add a profile filter down here that says placed order 0 times since starting the flow and has not been in the flow in the last 2 weeks. The reason why you want to do this is so that you prevent people from receiving those emails the moment they actually complete the purchase. A common mistake that people do is that they add the filter here that says started checkout 0 times since starting this flow. This is actively sabotaging your efforts. Don't do that. It will make people that do respond to your emails and go back to the checkout to exit the automation and lower your conversions. Don't do that. So this is the checkout abandonment. Super easy, super simple. You can have all sorts of splits, but that's for another video. I just want to show you the correct setup of the automations themselves in this one. So the next one is cart abandonment, and you want to use added to cart as a metric, and then you want to have a filter that says placed order 0 times since starting the flow, checkout started 0 times since starting the flow, and has not been in the flow in the last 21 days. Pretty simple, pretty intuitive. You want people that purchase to exit this automation. You want those that start the checkout, meaning those that would enter the previous automation to exit this automation. Hence, you see checkout started 0 times starting the flow. And then on top of this, you want to have the filter of has not been in the flow in the last 21 days, because you don't want people to be receiving those constantly if they happen to add multiple things to the cart. And you might be thinking, why 21 and why not 13? Because this is a signal of lower purchase intent than starting the checkout. So it's less important that you don't miss out on targeting those that add something to the cart. Your mileage may vary, and you may want to have a more narrow window of time. For us, we really care about the brand itself, and we don't want to be bombarding people too much, at least in this case, hence a relatively generous time window. Then we have browse abandonment, and in this case, you are not going to be surprised hopefully at this point. You want to include added to cart 0 times, checkout started 0 times since starting the flow. Again, the idea being that you want people to be in one automation at a time, not multiple ones at the same time, right? And on top of this, you want to have created is at least 3 days ago. Why 3 days ago? Because you don't want to be immediately bombarding people with browse abandonment messages. You want them to be receiving your welcome flows and potentially your cart or checkout automations at this early stage into the life cycle. If you start bombarding them with this, you might be sending them a little bit too much, especially if on top of this you're also doing campaigns. Why 25 days and it has not been in the flow filter? Because again, as we discussed, ultimately this is a lower purchase intent signal on the previous steps, so you want to give a wider window of time. And lastly, we have the active on-site abandonment, in which case the logic is still the same. View product 0 times, add to cart 0 times, checkout started 0 times, and placed order 0 times since starting this flow, and has not been in the flow in the last 30 days, and created this at least 7 days ago for the exact same reasons as the previous automations. The trigger is active on site, and trust me, if you set up these automations the way I'm showing you, you are already ahead of most brands. Those 4 different touch points deserve their own retargeting sequence, and this is the correct way to set up the sequence. The execution within those sequences has a lot of nuance. As you can see, in this case, the first email sends people to a quiz, and how you do this really depends on the brand and what you're like trying to do as a company. But from a flow filter and setup perspective, what I showed you is the optimal path to send those emails. I'm gonna move on to the next section. Here are the filters in case you wanna take another look, taken as screenshots. You can take your own screenshot, I don't care. This is the correct way to set up site abandonment and price abandonment. And then similarly, this is the correct way to set up cart and checkout abandonment. Now, having said this, this is just the very basic step 1 of your retargeting system, because on top of this, Klaviyo has functionalities that would ultimately allow you to capture way more interactions and send way more emails. So number 1 on the list is what we call extended ID tracking. Once a user is identified by Klaviyo, by default, Klaviyo can hold their info for 7 days. This depends on the browser that they're using, but that's a good average to have in mind. Extended ID allows Klaviyo to track users for a full year, which means unless you turn this on, somebody may enter your website today and then do so again 10 days later, and Klaviyo won't know who they are. But if you do this, it's going to be able to recognize them for a full year, which is extremely important. It will allow you to send way more emails, capture way more users, and ultimately convert more of them. It's extremely easy to set up, yet consistently brands are not setting it up. The way to do so is to go to the menu of your account, choose settings, navigate to the data tab, go to the extended ID section and press enable. This is it. It's taking literally 1 minute. It's gonna be super helpful for you. The next thing is extended Shopify metrics tracking. Now this only applies if you're on Shopify, sadly, but the way it works is that it basically allows Klaviyo to capture more behaviors within your website. Specifically, it allows you to capture when somebody uses a collection page, when somebody uses the search bar, both of which can be their own retargeting automations. How you do this? Extremely simple. You go to your integrations tab, you click on the Shopify integration, you make sure that the track behavioral events feature is enabled, and that's it. You should be able to capture those additional events, and you should be able to create automations around them. For example, for a collection abandonment automation, this is one thing you could do. You could set it up in this way. You should, I should say, set it up in this way. Checkout started 0 times, added to cart, viewed product, placed order all 0 times since starting the flow, and they've not been in the flow in the last 30 days. Let's move on to the next step, which is when things start to get complicated for people. Server-side tracking is basically a way to capture even more users on the website. And you may have heard of Triple Whale, Elevar, Blackout, like there's tons of technologies that do that, and they are helpful for advertising. They are helpful also for sending more emails. You'll see often that they say, we allow you to send 40% more cart abandonment emails, and like you're gonna make all of this extra revenue, which is true. It's not a lie. But the thing is, they help you implement their technology in isolation, meaning Elevar's team will tell you this is how our business as usual Elevar automations are set up. They might even clone them on the website. This, by the way, will only happen if your brand is big. So if you're small, don't get your hopes up. But assuming that they do this, the setup will be correct, but it will assume that you only use Elevar. And many of you will have triple whale on top of Elevar, or Little Data, or Aimerce, or any of those other tools. And that's when things get tricky, when you have more than one. So the other category of retargeting that you can do is through what we call third-party publisher networks. Those are technologies like retention.com, like Opensend, and what they do fundamentally in a nutshell is that they have those huge lists of publisher websites where people go and give their consent to, and then if they give their consent to those publisher websites, they're basically giving their consent to everybody within Opensend's network, which means that if users enter your website, you can recognize who they are, even if they never actively signed up for your pop-ups or like abandoned cart and so on. So it is a different way to reach people than Black Crow, Elevar, Triple Whale, and so on, but it is an effective way. Of course, this only applies in the US. If you're in Europe, sadly, this would not be compliant and legal to do. But the complexity and difficulty comes because, again, it's difficult to set this up on top of this, or to set multiple technologies like this at the same time. And the trick is actually fairly simple. What you need to do, and I'm going to show you how to do this, what you need to do is create a prioritization system where you have your native metrics firing first, yeah, and then your server-side technology firing second, and then your third-party publisher technology firing last. And each should be excluding each other. And the way to do so is ultimately straightforward. But again, almost nobody gets this right. I'm going to show you concretely how to do this within Klaviyo so that you don't make a mistake. What is the cost of not doing what I'm going to show you? The cost is you get a lot of unsubscribes, you get a lot of spam complaints, and ultimately you are paying all of this money to those technologies, but you're not making the most out of them. If you do what I'm going to show you, you will be able to harness their full potential, and you will be able to measure what the true incremental impact they have is. Because again, you will be sending your native messages, and your server-side technology will only be sending to those that the native messages did not capture, and then your third publisher retargeting will only be sending to those that your native and server-side retargeting did not capture. So it's going to be actually net new incremental messages that you're sending. I'm going to head over to Klaviyo to show you, and see you in a moment. Okay, so for this example, I will show you how to set up native retargeting plus Black Crow plus Triple Whale. So it's a 3 technology setup. Exactly what I'll show you could apply if you had native, Little Data, and retention.com, or Aimerce and Opensend. Doesn't really matter. The exact same logic applies. And I'm going to show you now. I will do so with site abandonment so that we have our very first step. And this is our regular site abandonment, which we saw previously. This is our Black Crow retargeting, and this is our Triple Whale pixel retargeting. So, as I mentioned, you want to have priorities. So, your first automation would look a little bit like this. You have your regular setup, viewed product 0 times, checkout started 0 times, placed order 0 times, has not been on the floor in the last 30 days. And then on top of this, you want to include the equivalent metrics for Black Crow and Triple Whale. So viewed product Black Crow 0 times, checkout started Black Crow 0 times, etc, etc, etc. And on top of this, you want to have received email 0 times from the equivalent site abandonment flow from Black Crow and from the equivalent site abandonment flow from Triple Whale. Again, you want to make sure that there's no overlapping, and you want to make sure that this has priority over the other automations. How you do this, you go to Triple Whale, which is our priority number 2, and you have the exact same metrics, but then on top of this, you say active on site 0 times since starting this automation. And what this would do, and of course you want to have this as well, what this would do is that it would cause people to receive this first as the first priority, and people to receive this second as the second priority. So if this doesn't capture them, they will basically receive this. And then the third step, which would be Black Crow, would look a little bit like this. So you have your, again, regular viewed product 0 times, add to cart 0 times, checkout start 0 times, place order 0 times, has not been in the flow, etc. And then you have active on site 0 times since starting these flows, like we did before. But on top of this, you've added active on site Triple Whale 0 times since starting this flow. So this will only send if the previous priority, in this case Triple Whale, did not actually send. So again, priority number 1 is your native retargeting, priority number 2 is, in this case, Triple Whale, and then last but not least, you have Black Crow. What this will do is that it will throttle how many emails Black Crow sends to be only targeting those that the other metrics were not able to capture. And of course, the same applies to Triple Whale. It will only send to those that the regular metric was not able to capture. And this means that the impact is going to be truly incremental, and you won't need to worry about people receiving multiple versions of the same emails. I'm going to open up to review another step in the conversion funnel. In this case, I'm going to do browse abandonment so that we see how you could progress this exact same logic to the next step in the life. This is our browse abandonment, and then what we see here is that the same logic that we had before is applied to the browse abandonment scenario. So we have added to cart 0 times, checkout started 0 times, created at least 3 days ago, basically what we had previously, plus the equivalent Black Crow metrics and the equivalent Triple Whale metrics. And then on top of this, of course, we have received email 0 times from those other automations because we don't want to be bombarding people too much. Now, let's take a look at the next step, which would be what happens in the Triple Whale browse abandonment. It would look a little bit like this. Same exact logic, except there's also viewed product 0 times since starting this automation, so that the previous automation gets priority over this. Now, let's take a look at what happens in the Black Crow version. Same exact metrics, except now we have viewed product 0 times since starting this automation, and on top of this, we have viewed product Triple Whale version 0 times since starting this automation. Again, isolating the people who will receive those emails to be truly incremental, so that they can't be messaged unless they are not captured by the other technologies. And that's how you should be setting those up. I have seen tons of accounts, and I've yet to see a single one, except the ones we work with, to have this set up correctly. So If you're using any of those technologies, be sure to check the setup, because I promise you that 99% it's gonna be wrong. And if you do what I told you, it will be working the way it's supposed to. Before I wrap up, I've included those like actual screenshots of the filters so that you can see them all in one place. Feel free to screenshot it. I don't really care. Hope it's helpful, whether you work in-house or a brand, like as a consultant. Chances are your setup, if you're using those, was not correct, and hopefully this was helpful. Now, if it were helpful, I would appreciate two things. Number one, please subscribe to this channel. It's very early on, but I promise you it can be something that has extreme value for you as a lifecycle specialist. Again, whether you're in-house, whether you're a service provider, freelancer, agency, doesn't really matter. I'm gonna show you everything we do that allows us to be one of the best agencies in the world at what we do. But I will only do this if I keep posting, and I will only keep posting if I see traction. So please subscribe. Number two, if you found this video helpful, or if you didn't find it helpful, if you have any sort of feedback, please comment on the video. Please tell me, what would you like to see next? What could I do better? What did you not like? How can I make the video more engaging? How can I ultimately provide more value to you? Please let me know in the comments. It helps from an algorithm perspective. More people discover the content, but more importantly, it helps me produce better tutorials and better videos for you. So thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to send this to people that could also benefit from it. Thank you for watching this.